Okay, I'll be able to sell the iPad to somebody else, but by Apple's contract, I don't necessarily
can't-
have the ability to.
I can't really take anything back and forth.
No,
Even though I can take tires off the wheels
That's
of my
right.
Jaguar and
Yeah.
stick them on my Cadillac.
that's right.
Okay.
Yes. Well, you can take the tires off if they're the same size tires. You might have to put different rims
Yeah,
on.
well, that's what I said. But I take the tires,
tires,
off, not the
yeah,
wheels.
not the- no,
and,
not the
and mind you, I've got a 350 Chevy engine in the Jaguar,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I can mix things back and forth.
Well,
when
but
I want.
you have the ability to do that. But when you start talking about digital rights management and the fact that that software, that content is locked down, even though it may in fact be locally locked down on your machine, there's no external key. And right now that's not true. Apple still has a key too. They can turn it off, just like Amazon turned off the books on the Kindle. And again, if you don't understand this,
That
go
was
to
books
the
because
website.
of copy-
There's a link there.
That was a copyright.
That was a
from Great
copyright,
Britain, yeah.
but it doesn't matter. Okay, my favorite bookstore, White Dwarf Books, up on Broadway and 10th, or sorry, 10th and Elma. Okay, if I go and buy a science fiction book from them, and they find out 2 weeks later that the publisher shouldn't have sold it because they didn't have the rights, they can't come into my library and take it away. But Amazon can come into your Kindle and take it away.
They can take it just like that.
Just like Apple can take away a piece of music, or they can turn your whole machine to a brick. That's what they have done with iPhones in the past. They brick it. They find out that you have cracked it, and they send it a piece of software that tells it to stop working. Sorry, I don't buy anything from anybody that does that. That piece of hardware is mine. That's not yours. What is in it is mine. It is not yours. It's not the manufacturer's. And what's happening is that the manufacturers, for whatever reason, but largely because they've been pushed by the publishers, in Apple's case, they're also doing it for their own business reasons, but because they're pushed by the publishers, they are putting this digital rights management software in place so that the publishers are comfortable with the fact that somebody can buy a song and put it on their iPhone and they can't copy it, or they can only make a limited number of copies, or they can only move it once from the iPhone to their PC and that's it. It's locked down.
No, can they move
But-
it to
but-
an IBM PC, or can it only be a Mac?
No, there's an Apple iPhone application for the standard PC, iTunes.
iTunes, okay.
But the point is that you've defeated the first sale doctrine, wherein once I have purchased something, it's mine to do with what I wish. As with a book, I can buy a book, and under today's copyright law, I can turn around and I can loan you that book. I can give you that book. I can sell you that book, and the original publisher has no control over
what
that.
happens.
They have no rights of another license fee or anything. They have no rights in the matter because they sold it to me to start with. And what is happening is that the publishers do not want to cut that string. They want a license separate from sale. And so they are no longer, they're using the copyright law, but in fact what they're doing is they're creating a license paradigm that is actually civil law separate from the federal copyright law. And then they're trying to play one off against the other. Now again, I am not a lawyer. I'm just trying to understand this like everybody else, and I'm trying desperately to help people understand what's happening.
But you've worked really hard on it.
I've worked really hard on it, but
You've
I
traveled
have
at your own expense.
I've read the copyright law
Ottawa.
back and forth several times, but I don't know the context of the rest of the background in the same fashion that a lawyer would. Okay, I haven't.
Nobody
got into the
really
case
knows
law.
what the judge is going to say.
No,
That's why two people go
that's
to court
exactly
and have
right.
a fight.
That's exactly right. What I'm trying to understand and what I'm trying to get other people to understand is just how badly we are going to get screwed over the next few years. The Americans have already felt this with the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, but they, as I explained last week, they actually have something that balances some of the inequities that are on the surface of the
Canada
digital
doesn't have it.
that Canada doesn't have. And we got into the difference between fair dealing and fair use. And again, I mean, that's getting way down in my notes here. We've jumped over a whole bunch of stuff. But the bottom line is that Canada has what's called fair dealing, and the States has fair use. And the States is trying to push the Digital Millennium Copyright Act and the terms and references that are contained in that, which were done because of the World Intellectual Property Organization Treaty of 1996, I believe, WIPO Treaty, which Canada's signed but has never ratified, never actually passed any laws to do with it, which is, again, what our wonderful conservative government's been trying to do for the last several sessions, is pass something to actually do this. But what it comes down to is that fair dealing is a list of things you are allowed to do, and if what you want to do is not on the list, you're not allowed to do it.
Okay.
Okay, it's what's called an exhaustive list.
Okay.
And it basically says you can make an excerpt of a work for criticism, for review, for news reporting, for research purposes, and for private study.
Yep.
And then if you're a library or you're an educator, there's a couple of other things you can do provided you jump through some extra hoops. If what you want to do is not in those five
little
things,
list, can't
for
do it.
instance, if I want to make a copy of the hockey game tonight because I'm sitting here instead of watching the Canucks win, that's called time shifting.
Yep.
That is not allowed under Canadian copyright law.
But happens all the time.
Well, again, we'll get into that. But the bottom line is that fair use is a different thing, and it's not an exhaustive list. It's a concept that is wherein you are allowed to do something unless somebody complains and goes to court, and then the court drives a stake in the sand and says, this is the amount that you're allowed to do. All right, now there are limits. When you read the law, there's actually some fairly obvious things. But for instance, the difference between a photograph, copyright on a photograph and fair use, and copyright on a musical work and fair use. Two different pieces,
Yep.
or two different types of media, and there's two different two different judgments
Yep.
on two different cases, wherein with a graphic, taking a piece of that graphic and making a collage. So you make a collage, another work out of 100 different
Yep,
photos,
YouTube.
shrunk down to thumbnails and that sort of thing. That actually is a possibility under fair use.
Yep.
It is allowed under fair use, and you don't have to pay anything to the original artist for all of the different works. But sampling a piece of music, for instance, grabbing as little as a single drum beat
Yep.
out of a musical work and using that in creating another work with that and a whole bunch of music from other things, that has been judged to be 100% a copyright violation.
Okay.